Hello lovelies and welcome to today's video. So today's video is sort of like a two-in-one. Yes, my lovely picture says an art journal process, but the title of this is a gel plate play. It's sort of with an image, magazine image transfer with a twist. So you'll know what I mean when you get to the end of the video. So basically, I was doing an online challenge. I really do enjoy doing online challenges. It really helps get the mojo flowing. And there was a cybercrop on a Facebook group that I'm in, and I was really inspired by one of their mixed media tic-tac-toe challenges. Now, tic-tac-toe challenge, if you haven't seen it before, is basically, looks like a tic-tac-toe grid or noughts and crosses for you Aussies, and it's got a different prompt in each square, and you join 3 to make your series what you're going to do. And mine was magazine image, stencil, and paint. So those are the 3 that I chose. And I was going to start, I started by putting some gesso in my art journal because I was going to throw some paint on and then rub it off with a wet one through a stencil. But then I thought, why not get out my gel plate? I haven't played with this in a long time and I've been wanting to. But for me, when I get my gel plate out, it's one of those things that I can sit there for hours doing. So I tend to not do it unless I've got some time that I can just keep going and I've got the supplies out and I've got the room to dry everything. It's one of those things that I love so much that I tend to avoid, if that makes sense. I'm slightly nuts, just remember that. So things that I really love, I tend to avoid because I lose so much time to them because I can't stop doing them. Yeah, I'm a little bit of a nutball, but anyway. So I decided that this challenge was perfect for some gel press play. Now, it had been such a long time since I had my gel plate out that I decided to just mess around with it a little bit first until I make something that I'm happy with to create on. And this takes a bit of a turn. I'm quite surprised, but I love how it turned out. We're out of plain copy paper. My son likes to make books and we have none. So I'm using some awesome calligraphy paper that I got from a Daiso shop. It's really thin and it's just really cool. And it's also a little bigger than A4. I think it's close to an A3 maybe. And so I'm just using that all I'm really doing is playing. I'm playing with paint and stencils. I have no real interest in using these pools to do this art page that I'm playing with at the moment. I'm just playing just to get a feel for my art journal and my gel plate again, just to sort of reacquaint myself, if that makes sense. I do love to put my gel plate straight in my journal a lot of the time, and I thought that would be how I start my page. And then I thought, well, I didn't bring in any of the stencils, so I'm doing that now. But then I absolutely love what I'm left with so much that I want to pull it up with some white paint on top. And then I thought, wouldn't that make a fantastic image in my art journal to start playing with? So I try and recreate it, but I keep forgetting steps every time I do it. This is where I put up the ghost image and think this would make an awesome print. So I'm going to throw some white paint down, and that's going to help me pull up the remnants of the paint that's already on there. And it gives you a really nice pull. Can you hear those birds in my window? I'm doing this voiceover in my art room as opposed to my bedroom, which I usually do, and I'm noticing it's much more noisier up here. You got more cars driving past and birds and whatnot. But I'm really excited for this video, so I really wanted to voice over it and get it up for you today. So this is where I'm going to pull up essentially what would have been a ghost print, but I'm using that white and it's helped getting all of that paint off the gel plate. That is what I love about a gel plate. You can pull every tiny ounce of paint off of it. All you got to do is just add a light layer of white and or of a lighter color, and it's going to pull up every little scrap of paint you've got on there. And in this case, I really wanted that stencil image, that imprint from the stencil, which is why I did it again. So this is me trying to recreate that accidental print that I love so much, so I can use it as a page in my art journal. Like I said, I like to print with my gel plate straight into my art journal and make a page. But yeah, I kept forgetting steps, or it wasn't, basically I just kept playing. So I keep playing until I'm really happy with something. So you'll see that I actually make, I think, about 3 or 4 pages in my art journal that I don't use. I end up not using any of them. Wait till you see what I actually end up using. So I've got my image in there, but then I have forgotten that it's the ghost image that I like, so I'm going to try that again. I use way too much white paint for this. It doesn't actually give me a crisp image to lift. I'm going to put this in my journal as well. But too much paint. But that's the beauty of it. There is no mistakes in art or gel printing or art journaling. So at some point I will use this. I will find a way to use this print. It didn't give me the image I was after. Yeah, see, far too much white paint. But I'll make it work. So pulling the ghost print in the art journal as well. Like I said, I end up making a few prints in my art journal. I will use these at some point. I will find a way. This is another thing I like to do in my art journal. This is how I clean off my stencils. I get a wet one and I just rub over it. And as you can see, when you do it on a stencil, it's pulling the paint into that negative space. So it's like you're getting another transfer from your stencil. And this is just a great way that I like to add some layers to those backgrounds. So as you can see, I've got half a background there already. So I am doing all this and I forget, hang on, the whole point of getting out my gel plate was to do the magazine image transfer. If you haven't seen this technique, there are lots of videos on YouTube to do it. It's a fantastic technique. It's so much fun. Very addictive, I will say. Also hit and miss, depending on the magazine you use, the shades of paint as well, and also the technique and style you do it in. So it can be hit and miss, but when you figure out what works for you and what magazines work for you, this is a really cool technique. So basically you put down, in my case, I put down a dark layer of paint, pick out a magazine, and what's going to happen is the dark in some of the black in certain magazines, it resists the paint. So what you're left with is an image transfer from the magazine, like this. And then basically there are different ways to do this. When I first started, I found just pulling it straight off onto a lighter gel print that I'd already made worked. The way that most people do this is you let this dry on your plate, hence the heat gun, and then you add a light color over the top. And just like you saw me do earlier, it's going to help pull all of that paint off the gel plate. This was actually kind of freaky for me to do because this isn't usually how I do a gel. I've done this a few times when I first started and it didn't work for me, so I took a bit of a risk, but it was working this session. So like I said, it can be hit and miss. And so I decided to put this in my journal, and this was supposed to be the image or the gel print that I was going to use. But I didn't like it. There was something about it that it just wasn't going to work for me. So I thought, no, not going to use it. I will use this at some point. I'll find a way. But this is the part I love. Now, this is the original magazine image that I got, that I used the transfer for. I've kept a few of these because I just love the image so much, and I find that if I wipe some of the paint off, I'm left with a really cool image. And I thought in this case, I really liked this image. It was a black and white, and the blacks were really bold. And after I'd pulled it off the gel plate, it was still really cool. After I wiped off some of that paint, I loved it so much. And then I thought, why not use this? So why not use this this image in my journal? So this is where this whole video takes a complete 180. It's not what I set out to do, but it is still using paint, it is still using a stencil, and it is still using a magazine image. And that is what I love about this video. I started with the intention of doing something else, but it completely changed halfway through. But I love it. I love this so much more. I absolutely adore how this turned out. So I'm going to start by gluing this into my art journal with gel medium. I don't usually glue in full pages into my art journal. I don't think I usually glue anything in, really, apart from the odd image here and there. But yeah, strange. That only just occurred to me. But anyway, so I'm just gluing that in, and then I'm going to use, yes, I glue it in crooked because I'm just awesome like that. Can't believe I did that. But I thought I might go around it with some black paint or something to sort of join it together anyway, so it wasn't really a big deal. But then I'm just using an old card. I think this might actually be a gift card for once. Usually I use either old iTunes cards or time zone cards. You know, when you go to time zone, I don't know about you in the States, but here in Australia, you go to time zone and you get a card, and that's how you access all the games and things. Yeah, well, I take them with me when we're done and I use them in my art room. I have a collection of them. But anyway, back to the video. So the magazine image and the paint from the gel press meet two of the boxes that I had to tick. And then the last was, of course, to use a stencil. So I thought I'd use that in a different way as well. So I'm grabbing the same stencil that I've been using for this entire video, and I'm just going to use a white gel pen, and I'm just doodling in some of those stars, colouring in the odd one here and there, just to go around the focal image of her head. I've left the bottom where her body is. You can't really see it, or there's not a lot of detail there, but I've centered the stars just around her head. And I even got really clever, and I did some half stars behind her head and sort of stopped them. It actually worked. I was quite impressed with that. I didn't think it would work, but it did, so I was happy with that. And so I'm just going to continue doing that for a few minutes, just fill in a few of the gaps, move my stencil around a bit until I'm happy with my placement. I do scribble inside a few, not too many. I didn't want to do it really bold. I really wanted to have that doodly look. I've been trying to doodle in my journal a little bit more because I really want to add some more marks and things like that. So yeah, and I like the look of just the odd full white one here and there. And then that's going to be it for my background. So I thought, what am I going to call this page? What can I do? I really did love the blank area down the bottom, and I thought that would be a great place for my title or a quote or something. And I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. But then I remembered my absolute favourite alphabet stamps. And it's, what is it? It's a Tim Holtz one. It's these foam ones here. And I love them because of, sometimes when you get alphabet stamps, there's a lot of background rubber. I love these because it's just the letter, and it makes it so much easier to stamp a word or a title or a complete phrase, which I adore. So I decided to go real original and go with sparkle. Now, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I know that I wanted this sparkle in bright white right in the middle of my page, down the bottom in the middle of that blank space. So that's what I do. But I decided to use paint because white ink just isn't opaque enough for me, and I knew that paint, or gesso in this case, would do a fantastic job. And I'm using my brayer just to roll that on to get a nice even coat and not too thick, because if it was too thick, it wouldn't stamp clearly. And then because I've got some paint left on my brayer, I'm just going to go and ink around the edges of my page just to try and give it a bit of a border and tie in those little off-cut strippy parts that I've got happening. And then off camera, because I forgot to press record, I just finished my title. I went with Rise and Sparkle, which I really love, and then just drew a few little tiny stars around my little title. And that's it for the page. So I hope you have enjoyed the video. I really love how this turned out. So thanks for watching, and I'll be back real soon with a new video. Bye for now.